I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-Minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good morning, Royce Gomez. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful morning?
I am doing wonderful, thank you.
You are welcome. It's a great pleasure to connect with you. Tell us, what part of the world are you in right now?
I am in Colorado right now.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time?
Well, although I do coaching and public speaking, Angel, you found me through my podcast called Thrive, A Woman's Journey to Victory.
Yay, you're a podcaster. Yay.
Yes, fellow podcasters.
That's great. Podcaster equal family, family equal podcaster. So who did you learn the skills of podcasting from?
Well, it wasn't really who, but why as to why I got started. It was a project originally that began with a book to feature some of my 30-something co-authors on an international best-selling book, but it became so much bigger than that. It took on a life of its own, and I've had guests from literally around the world in many different industries. So that inspired me to keep going.
Well, tell us the name of the book, please.
Discover Your Destiny, Live Your Dreams, Love Your Life. And there were 33 of us ladies that co-authored that.
Wow, how exciting that must have been. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came right around and had interviews with them. Did you get all of them on the podcast?
I did not.
Okay.
Most of them, but not all.
Okay, which is cool. So now that you've been doing this, why will you... Now, there are other books that you've authored as well, right?
There are. The most exciting book that I'd like to mention is an upcoming leadership book that's being endorsed by Brian Tracy and Kevin Harrington and some other people, and that will be out early 2018.
All right. Spoilers, are you giving us the name of it, or would you let that come out first and then say?
Yeah, I'm going to let it come along a little bit further before I release that, so no spoilers.
All right, that's cool. So you started podcasting and you are obviously enjoying it tremendously. Why will you continue to repeat this skill?
The stories of my guests impact so many people. I actually stopped the podcast for several months, and I would wake up to emails and Facebook messages saying, I just found your podcast and heard the story of so-and-so. It was so inspiring, but I don't see any newly released stories. And after getting those messages for months, I just knew I had to continue because it's impacting people literally around the world. And that's what we're created here to do, I believe.
Wow. Well, isn't that amazing? You are serving her. How has the podcast impacted your life, Royce?
Hearing the stories inspires me because, as you know, Angel, from being an entrepreneur, sometimes it's a lonely journey or a hard journey, and I just am inspired every time I hear one of my guests tell their story on how they went from adversity to victory.
Amazing. Well, Royce, tell us one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
I call it staying on the court. In other words, having the mindset that you are always in the game and you play like you're on the court, because in sports, when you're on the bench, you're not playing, you're not being active, you're not being in motion towards your goals. But when you're on the court, you're constantly looking at that goal. So I believe in staying on the court.
I love that. So who did you learn that from? Like that ability to understand that the skill is where you stay on the court. And how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel empowered because when you're in action, that's the only time things happen and transformation happens in your life and your business. There's not one specific person I've learned that from. I would say it's been a host of mentors and advisors in my life, and they've used that term differently. But even though I'm not an athlete, I love the analogy of sports and being on the court.
Suggest to someone out there that's listening the importance of being on the court and not Well, not being on the sidelines of life.
Well, Angel, we only have one life to live. And if we don't live it fully and live full out and stay on the court playing the game that we were created to play, we've lost time that never get back. And we are responsible for where we are. If we don't like where we are, it's because of our own choices.
Amazing audience, you're hearing it live here with Royce Gomez. Again, she is the podcast host of Thrive, A Woman's Journey to Victory. Is there anywhere you would like to point us to connect with you, Royce?
Absolutely. You can go to RoyceTalks.com or coachingwithroyce.com for my coaching programs. And then I can also be found on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And again, Royce is spelled like R-O-Y-C-E. That's the spelling for Rolls Royce, right? Yeah, R-O-Y-C-E. Yeah, so you could definitely
easy to remember.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Royce, let's switch gears for a moment now and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Royce, what is your earliest childhood memory?
It goes back to when I was in 5 and in kindergarten with my cousin, and she and I grew up like sisters together. So that's my earliest memory, is us on the playground.
Intriguing. So why do you think this memory is so clear, and how can you connect it to who you are today?
Oh, I think it's so clear because she and I grew up, like I said, like sisters. We both have brothers, but no sisters. How does it make me who I am today? I think the importance of family has always stuck with me. And even though we change with time and we move away, family is still important.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Absolutely.
I love the idea of you sharing with us earlier on how important it is to stay on the court. And to see that your memory involves you being on the playground with another team member, right? especially with you doing the podcast Thrive, A Woman's Journey to Victory, and just being there with your cousin, who is also a young lady at the time, right? A 5-year-old young lady. It's just amazing how those both connect. So I look forward to seeing you staying on the court or playground.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If we fast forwarded to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
I don't know of a particular song that stands out, but probably something country. And then towards my teen years, I moved to 80s pop.
All right.
But I've always loved music, and I still do.
All right. It's cool. You're not the first person, and I'm sure you would not be the last. Royce, we've arrived at our destination now. But before we get off of this time machine, there is a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Royce?
Sure.
Royce, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
No.
Are you married?
No.
Do you have children?
Yes, 2 grown children.
All right. Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Definitely.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
No.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Probably over 8 most days.
Royce, after 1001 conversations in 3 months in 2016, I came up with a workbook thereafter. The name of it is called Yours. It stands for Your Own Unique Real Self. And the idea is you answer questions similar to these to connect you to your own unique real statement, your mission, if you would. Royce, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Royce Gomez, what would you say that is?
Go from surviving to thriving. You are the author of your life.
Love it. Royce, this has been a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I love Maya Angelou's quote, success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And I love my life every day because of that.
Love it. Royce Gomez, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you, Angel.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition the signs and symptoms and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.